Stern 86 Merits of Socialism and the Status of Right to Property in India after the 44th Amendment. Introduction. Understanding the Socialist Vision. Socialism is a political and economic philosophy that emphasizes collective welfare, equality, and social justice. It opposes the concentration of wealth and privilege in a few hands and seeks to ensure that the means of production and the benefits of development are equitably distributed among all members of society. Unlike capitalism, which promotes competition and private profit, socialism promotes cooperation, social ownership, and economic democracy. It aims to balance individual freedom with collective welfare, a principle that deeply influenced the Indian Constitution and its vision of a welfare state. Merits of Socialism. Socialism, as an ideology and system, has several moral, social, and economic advantages that make it a preferred model for achieving justice and equality in modern states. 1. Promotion of economic equality. Socialism aims to reduce the gap between the rich and the poor by redistributing wealth and ensuring fair access to resources. It discourages the concentration of economic power and ensures that income and property serve social needs rather than private greed. This principle underlies policies such as progressive taxation, land reforms, and welfare schemes. Example, in India, policies like Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, MGNREGA, and public distribution systems reflect the socialist goal of economic equality. 2. Elimination of exploitation. Under capitalism, workers are often exploited for profit by employers who own the means of production. Socialism removes this exploitation by advocating state or cooperative ownership of key industries, ensuring that the fruits of labor go to those who produce, not merely to owners. Example, in socialist systems, industries such as transportation, electricity, or mining are managed for public benefit, not private gain. 3. Guarantee of basic needs and social security. Socialism guarantees every citizen the right to basic necessities, food, clothing, shelter, health, and education. It views these not as privileges, but as human rights that the state must provide. By doing so, socialism ensures economic security, social stability, and human dignity. Example, Scandinavian countries, following democratic socialism, provide universal health care, free education, and unemployment benefits. 4. Economic planning for collective good. Socialism introduces planned economic development to ensure that national resources are used rationally and equitably. Instead of leaving growth to market forces, socialist states plan production and distribution based on social priorities such as rural development, employment, and environmental protection. Example, India's 5-year plans, 1951 to 2017, were based on the socialist idea of planned development for social welfare. 5. Emphasis on cooperation over competition. Socialism replaces the competitive spirit of capitalism with cooperation and collective responsibility. It encourages teamwork and solidarity among citizens, preventing social divisions and fostering mutual trust. This cooperative spirit is essential for building national unity and a sense of shared purpose. Example, India's cooperative movements, such as Amul in the dairy sector, embody socialist principles of collective effort. 6. Promotion of social justice. Socialism ensures social equality by eliminating privileges based on birth, class, caste, or wealth. It upholds the moral principle that all individuals deserve equal respect and opportunity. Example, India's affirmative action policies, reservations for scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward classes, are rooted in the socialist ideal of social justice. 7. Reduction of class conflicts. By eliminating extreme inequalities and exploitation, socialism minimizes class antagonism. A society with fewer divisions between the rich and the poor promotes peace, harmony, and stability, reducing social unrest. Example, in a welfare-oriented state, labor and management work together through collective bargaining and social dialogue, preventing violent revolutions or strikes. 8. Humanitarian and ethical basis. Socialism rests on moral values of equality, fraternity, and compassion. It seeks not only material well-being but also the moral upliftment of society, replacing greed with service and competition with cooperation. It thus becomes not just an economic system but a way of life, aiming at the moral and spiritual welfare of humanity. Gandhi's vision of a just society based on trusteeship, simplicity, and non-violence was a distinctly moral form of socialism. 9. Strengthening of democracy. Socialism complements political democracy with economic democracy. Without economic equality, political liberty becomes meaningless as poverty limits the real choices of citizens. Socialism ensures that freedom is accompanied by social justice, making democracy more inclusive and substantive. Example, in India, the socialist ideal in the preamble ensures that democracy serves the poor and marginalized, not just the elite. 10. Welfare state and human development. Socialism leads to the creation of a welfare state where the government actively promotes citizens' well-being through education, healthcare, and employment. This focus on human development results in higher standards of living and greater social stability. 2. The status of the right to property in India after the 44th Amendment. 1. Historical background. Originally, the right to property was one of the fundamental rights under Articles 19, 1, F and 31 of the Indian Constitution. It guaranteed that every citizen had the right to acquire, hold, and dispose of property. The state could acquire property only for public purposes and upon payment of compensation. However, during the 1950s-70s, this right came into conflict with the socialist policies of land reform and redistribution of wealth, which were essential to achieving economic equality. Whenever the government passed land reform or nationalization laws, they were challenged in courts as violations of the right to property. This created a judicial-legislative conflict, leading to repeated constitutional amendments, 1st, 4th, 25th, and 42nd Amendments. Finally, the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1978 resolved the conflict by removing the right to property from the list of fundamental rights. 2. Changes introduced by the 44th Amendment Act, 1978. The 44th Amendment made the following crucial changes. I. Repeal of Articles 19, 1, F, and 31. These articles, which guaranteed the fundamental right to acquire and hold property, were deleted from Part 3, Fundamental Rights. 2. Introduction of Article 300-A. A new article, Article 300-A was inserted in Part 12, Chapter 4 Miscellaneous, under the heading Right to Property. It states, "No person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law." This means that property can now be acquired by the state only under legal authority, but it is no longer a fundamental right. 3. Transformation into a legal right. The right to property thus became a constitutional legal right, not a fundamental right. Citizens can approach the High Court under Article 226, but not the Supreme Court under Article 32, for protection of this right. 3. Implications of the 44th Amendment. A. Strengthening of socialist policies. By removing property from fundamental rights, the amendment allowed the government to implement land reforms, ceiling on land holdings, and nationalization programs without judicial obstruction. This change reflected India's commitment to socialism, ensuring that the pursuit of social justice would not be hindered by individual property claims. B. Balance between individual rights and social welfare. The amendment preserved the right to own property, Article 300-A, but made it subject to public welfare and lawful acquisition, thus balancing private interests with social good. C. Limitation on judicial review. Earlier, any person could challenge state action under Article 32 for violating property rights. After the 44th Amendment, such matters are treated as ordinary legal disputes, not constitutional violations. D. Shift from individualism to collectivism. The change symbolizes India's transition from a liberal capitalist orientation to a socialist democratic framework, where social welfare prevails over private wealth. 4. Judicial interpretation after the 44th Amendment. Post 1978, the judiciary has consistently upheld the socialist intent of the amendment. Zilubhai Nambhai Khachar v. State of Gujarat, 1995. The court held that the right to property is not a fundamental right but only a constitutional legal right under Article 300-A. Vishambhar Dayal v. State of UP, 1982. The court ruled that deprivation of property must be by a valid law, not by executive action. KT Plantation PVT Limited v. State of Karnataka, 2011. The court clarified that while compensation is not mandatory, deprivation of property must not be arbitrary, ensuring fairness under Article 300-A. Thus, even as a legal right, property remains protected from arbitrariness, but social welfare remains the higher constitutional value. 3. Relationship between socialism and the right to property. The removal of the right to property from fundamental rights reflects India's socialist commitment to redistribution of resources for social justice, elimination of feudal and capitalist concentration of wealth, establishment of an egalitarian social order as envisioned in the preamble and directive principles. Hence, while the right to property remains constitutionally protected, it is subordinate to the collective good of society, a perfect reflection of democratic socialism. 4. Summary for quick understanding. Socialism promotes equality, cooperation, social justice, and welfare, ensuring that wealth serves human needs rather than private greed. The right to property, originally a fundamental right, was converted into a legal right by the 44th Amendment Act, 1978, Article 300-A, to facilitate socialist reforms and social justice. This shift represents India's transformation into a socialist democracy, where individual rights are harmonized with collective welfare. Quick revision notes merits of socialism. 1. Economic equality and justice. 2. Elimination of exploitation. 3. Guarantee of basic needs. 4. Planned economy. 5. Cooperation and unity. 6. Social justice and dignity. 7. Reduction of class conflict. 8. Ethical and humanitarian foundation. 9. Strengthening of democracy. 10. Welfare state. Right to property. Originally, Fundamental Right, Articles 19, 1, F, 31. 44th Amendment, 1978 deleted these articles. New Article 300-A. No person shall be deprived of his property save by authority of law. Nature, legal right, not fundamental right. Constitutional principle, social welfare, private property. One-line questions and answers for revision. 1. What does socialism seek to achieve? Economic equality and collective welfare. 2. What was the status of right to property before 1978? A fundamental right. 3. Which amendment changed its status? The 44th Constitutional Amendment, 1978. 4. What article now governs property rights? Article 300-A. 5. Is the right to property now a fundamental right? No, it is a legal right. 6. Can a citizen approach the Supreme Court under Article 32 for property rights? No. 7. What was the purpose of removing the right to property from fundamental rights? To implement socialist reforms without legal obstruction. 8. What is the essence of socialism in the Indian Constitution? Social and economic justice. 9. Who ensures fair deprivation of property under Article 300-A? The legislature through valid law. 10. What does this change symbolize? India's shift toward democratic socialism and welfare state principles. Final connection. The merits of socialism, equality, justice, and cooperation lie at the heart of the Indian constitutional vision. By transforming the right to property from a fundamental to a legal right, the 44th Amendment ensured that social welfare and equitable development prevail over private interests, realizing the preamble's promise of a socialist democratic republic. Question 87. The